Evening. Hello. Everyone is well tonight. I feel like I'm forgetting something. What am I forgetting? Begin with the verse of the Kesa. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, bring all creations. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, bring all creations. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, bring all creations. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. The fragrance of this incense invites the awakened mind to be present with us now. The fragrance of this incense fills our room, protects and guards our minds from wrong thinking. The fragrance of this incense unites us with precepts, concentration, and insight. We offer it for all beings. Homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I shall become one with the Buddha. I resolve that I shall each day follow the way of life he laid down for us to walk and awaken to his supreme wisdom. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I shall become one with the Dharma. The gates of Dharma are manifold. I vow to enter them all. The goal of wisdom is ever beyond. I shall attain it. I go to the Sangha for guidance. I shall become one with the Sangha. In the spirit of universal fellowship and as a member of the Sangha, I pledge myself to strive for the enlightenment of all beings. The Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm, and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with the boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upward to the skies and downward to the depths, outward and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, sitting or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into the world of suffering. May I be happy and well. May no harm come to me. May I learn compassion. May all my friends, family, and those I love be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those troubled in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those who have hurt me in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those I have hurt in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all my enemies be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all living beings be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. We'll meditate. As the sound of the bell fades, take a few nice deep breaths. And then just let your breath settle into a comfortable rhythm. We'll do the guardian meditation. So spend a few moments reflecting on the Buddha. Virtues of the Buddha are wisdom, compassion, purity. So if you like, you can reflect on what those mean, or you can just use those words as anchors for your attention, noting your out breaths, wisdom, compassion, purity. May I be happy. May I be free from animosity. May I be free from stress and affliction. May I look after myself with ease. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free from stress and affliction. May all beings be free from animosity. May all beings look after themselves with ease. And we'll do a scan of the body. Feet. And just establishing your attention in the area, bringing your awareness of the breath to that spot. Releasing anything that you can release that needs to be released. Just accepting anything else. Calves. Knees. Thighs. pelvis, belly, center of the chest, shoulders, neck, face, crown of the head, life and death are of supreme importance. Time swiftly passes by and opportunity is lost. Each of us must strive to awaken. So spend just a few moments now. Find a place where it's comfortable to feel the breath. Rest your attention there, just observing the breath. Focusing your attention on the out breath. You can count them if you need to. Your attention on one breath at a time, each breath. The entire body of the breath, from the beginning of the in-breath to the feeling of fullness, from the beginning of the out-breath to the feeling of emptiness. The end of one breath, the beginning of the next. Following the breath continuously. Like a string of beads. May my breath be calm. Calming the breath. Calming the body. Calming the mind. So how's everybody doing? Good. Glad to see somebody answer. It's nice to see you here, Catherine Louise. So there's by the way, I've ordered a new light, one of these fancy ring lights. Good. That's kind of the idea. So, because, it's not going to get any lighter for a while. Purity. Yes. So I don't like to use that word because it has these connotations in Western culture, purity equals being puritanical or something like that. And it's not that. It's letting the mind be very clear, like water, right? So when you meditate, there's all kinds of junk floating around in there, right? And so as you sit and you rest your attention someplace, that starts to settle and the mind becomes more clear. That's part of it. As you develop this, the mind becomes less clingy. So things arise, but you're less likely to attach to them, right? And so free from those attachments, there's another word I'm going to use because it's the commonly used translation, but I hate it because, again, connotations and sort of cultural perspectives on these things, but the residues of negative karmas and the patterns of thinking that bring us back to suffering are basically stains on our consciousness. And those are often referred to as the defilements. Okay, these are, again, stains on our consciousness, mental patterns that tend to bring us back to suffering because they have the nature of clinging. And so as we practice, we become freer of those things, and the mind becomes purified. It's not some metaphysical thing. If you think about it, I mean, really obvious example of it would be something like if you ever quit smoking. At first, those patterns of addiction are really ingrained, and there's a whole bunch of them. There's physical cravings, and there's the feelings that arise in response to the physical cravings, and all the thoughts that come with that, and all of that sort of thing. And gradually, as you let go of those things when they come up, your mind becomes purified of them, or more purified of them. So you get less and less. And so, I quit smoking along 15. Last time I quit smoking, I think, was about 15 years ago, something like that. And every once in a while, I'll get this thought that, hey, a cigarette would be good, or maybe I should start smoking a pipe again, or something like that. And then, but it'll pass fairly quickly because there's not a lot of clinginess attached to that in my mind. And so, a thought will come up, but there's nothing for it to hook onto because the mind becomes purified of those things. And that's true of, clinging in general. Smoking is one example, addictions are examples, but lots of things that we cling to, right? So that's when we talk about the Buddha being Buddha, a virtue of the Buddha being purity, we mean that the Buddha eliminated all of those mental patterns that brought back to suffering. And so that's what an arahant, a noble one, is noble because their mind is freed of all of that stuff. They're completely released from anything that fuels suffering. So that's the purity. So I hope that answered your question. And if you think of something better to call that, let me know, because it's not real obvious. So anyway, that's not what I was going to talk about tonight. But it was a good question, and I was thinking about what I was going to talk about tonight, and there's a lot of stuff in the chanting and recitations that we do at the beginning that I haven't really explained in a long time. And I know, some of you have been members of the community for quite a while, so you've heard me talk about these things, but some of you maybe not. So if you would like me to give a Dharma talk sometime where I talk about all this stuff that's in the service that we do and why we say these things that we say, what this means, let me know. I mean, you can post it in the chat here that, yeah, great idea, or you can email me or whatever. I'm happy to do that. If nobody says that, then I'm going to assume everybody already knows what we're doing. Anyway, so the subject of kindness has been coming up for me a lot lately. Kindness. The Dalai Lama has famously said many times, that his religion is really not about fancy temples and complicated rituals and stuff like that. That his religion is kindness, and that you don't need a complicated religion. You just need to be kind. So there are many discourses in Buddhism where the importance of kindness in various forms is discussed as being important to this practice. So, and the new president at Stetson, Dr. Royalke, the first time I heard him give a talk, he was talking about kind of what the attitude or the policy, sort of the vibe. He didn't use that term that he wanted to bring to Stetson. And okay, well, I'll talk about that next week then. And he talked about sort of three things: kindness, empathy, and agency. And he put a lot of emphasis on the word kindness. And so we actually, in my team, the Office of Religious and Spiritual Life, invited him to talk about that at one of our events the other night. And, it's very interesting because I was like, okay, you're not a Buddhist, but you're talking about kindness. So what is it to you, and why is this important to you, and what does it mean, and all of that? And it was a very interesting conversation. Again, kindness really shows up in all religions, not just Buddhism. There's Jesus washed the feet of beggars, and I think stuff like that. So kindness is emphasized in Christianity, and the Sikhs feed anybody who's hungry. That's like, instead of having religious services, they invite everybody to come in and eat. Things like that appear in many religions, if not all of them. And so it is an important value, and I think it's something that we're really, unfortunately, missing a lot right now in our culture. Especially, I've said this many election years, but this particular election year seems to have lasted about a decade so far. You know what I mean? And people are like deliberately mean to each other and stuff. And so I think to talk about kindness is something that we should do frequently, because it's very important. Another reason this came up to me is that I was, looking through all these books, trying to figure out what to give away, what to keep, and come across a few things that I thought, oh, I don't think I've read that yet. Maybe I should look at it and see what it's about. And, and there's two books that I don't even know where they came, how I got them, but they're printed by some, Buddhist Publication Society in Singapore. And one of them is a collection of talks by this Chinese master, Pure Land guy, and Chin Kung, and very interesting talks. And he refers to this thing he refers to this person named Lao Fan. And then I find that I have this other book printed by the same people. I'll show it to you. Called cute little book, Lao Fan's 4 Lessons. And so I was very curious about this, and so I started reading this, and it's really all about kindness. The first lesson is you're not stuck with your destiny. So I don't really talk about destiny. Destiny is kind of a concept, but he said you're not stuck with being who you think you're stuck with being, basically. And then you can change the way your future is going to look by being kind. And the other 3 lessons are variations on that same theme, right? It's all about kindness. And so, like I said, I've been thinking about this, and the UUs, I was supposed to give this talk over on the river at a fish camp, and we got rained out. But there was a concept I was kind of working with for that I'm going to share with you a little bit of this tonight. It has to do with why, I think it has to do with why kindness is so integral to spiritual practice. So there's this ancient Indian myth in which Indra, the king of the gods, asked an architect to create something at his palace that would inspire everyone who saw it. And so the architect created this vast net which hung above Indra's palace in heaven. And the net stretched out from that point infinitely in all directions. And at each point on this net, nets are basically strings that are tied together and they create these little diamond shaped things. At each point where two strands crossed, the architect attached a precious jewel. And so as the net extends infinitely in every direction, there's an infinite number of glittering diamond like jewels. And each jewel reflects the jewels around it because of the way the net is designed. But not only that, because every jewel is reflecting all of the jewels around it, it's reflecting, every reflection includes all the other reflections. And so there's not just an infinite number of jewels, but an infinite reflection of reflections of reflections. So like infinity cubed, whatever that looks like. It's still infinity, but it's huge, right? Can't get your mind around that. So in a net, every strand connects either directly or indirectly with every other strand. And so if you tug on one jewel of Indra's net, the entire web and all of its jewels also move. So there's no way to affect one part of the net without that effect being experienced again and again through its limitless entirety. So this net appears in a Buddhist scripture called the Avatamsaka Sutra, or the Flower Garland Sutra. And the story of this net is this spiritual lesson that really kind of introduces us to the idea that everything is interconnected and interrelated. Everything is a part of a whole, and the whole is everything. So, here we are in a global pandemic, and, we're a community, but yet I'm in my place, you're at your place, right? So we might feel like we're apart from one another, but yet we're one with all existence, just as we're one here thanks to the internet, thinking about these same things. So this can seem very abstract, but if you look at life carefully, you begin to see this connectedness. And because everything is a reflection of everything else, then we start to see how we and the world are, hello, Shawnee, are interdependent. So there's a Chinese monk, and he was one of the patriarchs of the Huayan school of Buddhism, which I'm not really familiar with, but it emphasizes, pardon me, the Flower Garland Sutra. Anyway, this monk named Fa Zhang was a very creative Dharma teacher. And so he started looking for interesting ways to illustrate the principle of interdependency. And he was fairly well known among learned Chinese people. And among others, he taught Empress Wu, who was notable, among other things, for being the only female monarch in the history of China. She ruled from 690 to 705 Common Era. And he had a very unique way to demonstrate to her the principle of interconnectedness, as illustrated by Indra's net. He had a room built that was really very remarkable. It was square, but there were mirrors on all four walls and in each corner and on the floor and on the ceiling. And then in the center of the room, he put a Buddha statue with a lamp next to it. And so when the Empress stood in the room, no matter where she looked, she saw not only the Buddha statue reflected in a mirror, but also all the other mirrors reflecting back. And so no matter where she looked, she saw each reflection in all of its iterations. So there was this, again, infinite reflection of reflection of reflections. What's especially interesting about that room is that wherever you look, you see the singular, separate object as it appears in this whole. And each individual mirror contains and reflects the whole, right? So I'm looking in a mirror, I see the Buddha, but I also see every other mirror. And so you're seeing just the one thing and you're seeing everything all at once. So even thinking about that sort of blows my mind. Hopefully yours too. So, but what does that mean to us? Those of us who live here in the world. So we sometimes talk about our practice as the way of oneness. Bright Dawn, where I ordained in the sort of Jodo Shinshu side of my family tree, and Neil and Brandon and Pia and Tony and all these people practicing um, is Bright Dawn Center of Oneness Buddhism. So it's really the emphasis on that. And so when you go to White Sands and you hear Namo Aditaphat, Amitabha Buddha is basically the personification of this idea of oneness, that the whole reflects everything and everything reflects the whole. So we acknowledge our oneness with all beings, our sense of community with all life, and try to realize that we're part of a whole, and the whole is reflected in us, just like the Buddha statue reflects in each mirror, and each mirror reflects the entirety. So let me read you a passage from a book, Ethics of Enlightenment by Ronald Nakasone, who's I think he puts this really well. He's a Pure Land Jodo Shinshu priest. He said, what affects one member of this community affects me. What I do in turn will affect every other link in the web. Tug one strand and the whole web vibrates. Since all beings are inextricably bound together in a community, what affects one link in the web affects everyone. So the idea of an interdependent universe means that the dignity of humanity rises and falls with individual actions. Does that make sense? So this is very, I used to, when I was in high school, I really became fascinated with the teachings of the existentialists like Sartre, and this idea that, that by creating myself, I create society. So ultimately, Buddhists have come to understand that the universe is an expression of the karma of a sort of universal goodwill that is moving towards spiritual ease. As long as we're doing good, we're moving everything in a good direction. So somebody asked me in one of these talks not too long ago about the idea of community karma or something like that. Is there such a thing as sort of social karma? And yes, there is. As long as there's people doing good, we're creating a society of goodness. It may not look that way sometimes, right? And we don't know if and when the fruits of this will ever fully ripen. But we still recognize that if we do a kind thing, if we pluck that if we pull at one of those little jewels, the ripples go everywhere. So, and by the way, this has actually been studied by like the positive psychology people, that they've noticed that even to talk about acts of kindness that we've done or that we've witnessed makes us more likely to be kind again. It makes the people that we talk to more likely to be kind. And so, it's been studied, and so it's a very interesting phenomenon. The idea of paying it forward, actually does kind of work. It creates a kinder world that we live in. Again, that's in the context of a lot of stuff that maybe isn't kind. And so, if you think I'm full of crap, I understand, right? But, we don't want to live in the crap. We want to rise like lotuses with our roots in the mud. We want to rise above it and bloom in the sun, right? So this is one of the ways we can do this. So once you see yourself as an instrument in this sort of karma of universal goodwill, then a natural extension of that is to let your compassion manifest as compassionate social action. So the Buddha was kind of a social activist. We don't talk about that a whole lot. People think of him mostly as, being kind of removed from that stuff, but he really did encourage followers to practice not just for their own benefit, but for the benefit of society. And he pointed out that to protect oneself by developing virtue is to protect others. And so you see things like, I mean, I've talked about the bamboo acrobats story many times, where the gist of the story is, if I look out for myself, I'm looking out for you, and if I'm looking out for you, I'm looking out for myself. So if we look out for each other and ourselves, then we're protected all the way around. So when I refrain from doing harm, then I'm giving someone freedom from danger. So it's a gift. So my restraint is also a gift. Um, and I'm helping to create a world in which people feel comfortable and relatively free. Now, that doesn't mean that, because I'm not shooting anybody, that nobody's shooting anybody or whatever. But, the more we create this society of goodness, then the better, the more we get to live in a society of goodness. So this is why activism in the proper form is actually fairly important, and it's a part of Buddhist practice. If you can do something constructive that leads to a kinder world, then you should do it. But you have to be careful that what you're doing, is leading to a kinder world and not just generating more animosity. It's not always obvious. Humans are complicated, and the world is a complicated place. So Lao Fan, go back to Lao Fan's 4 lessons. I'm going to spend some more time on this. By the way, I'm kind of fascinated with this little book. Apparently, everybody, it was written in the 17th century, and apparently it kind of rolls in a lot of the Confucian thought, some of the Taoist thought, Buddhist thought, so from the culture of that era, and into these lessons in how to live a good life and create a good society, and based largely on being kind. So I had been reading this, and I was meditating one morning, and the bell rang, and I started to get up, and it suddenly occurred to me that talking about kindness is fine, but if I really want to know what's this about, well, I should be kind, which means act in a kind way. And so before I got up off of my cushion, I made a vow that I was going to do 108 acts of kindness. I didn't give myself a time limit because I wasn't sure, how long this would take. Obviously not a day. I don't go to that many different places in a day, but so I thought, well, okay, let me work with this and kind of see what happens. And it was very interesting because that very morning, an hour or two later, I left here to go teach Tai Chi, which is an act of kindness. But I was on my way there, and I was driving down the road, and a bag of trash had fallen off of somebody's truck or whatever, and was in the middle of the road. It was a big plastic garbage bag full of trash, and it was in the middle of the road, blocking it. There's people trying to go to school and drop off their kids and all that, and everybody's having to drive around this, and then the people coming the other way and having to stop and let them go around and everything. And so I jockeyed around it just like everybody else did, and then I'm about half a block away, and I go, moving that would be an act of kindness. And so I circled the block and went back and moved it because I've been thinking about the importance of kindness, right? And had made this vow that I'm going to be kind. And so, it was a simple thing to do. It took me a minute and a half or so out of my way to do it. But it was, it's once you start thinking about that, then it starts to affect kind of the way you see the world and the way you act in it. So I'm going to come back to this in the future, over time. But in Lao Fan's book, there's this thing where he has 10 different kinds of kindness, 10 different ways to act kindly. And I'm going to read them to you, and then I'll talk about them just a little bit. First one is to support the practice of kindness. 2, to revere, love, and respect. 3, to help others succeed in practicing goodness. 4, to persuade others to practice kindness. So I can check that one off my list. I've been trying to talk you into being kind, right? To help those in need. 6, to develop public projects for the greater benefit of people. 7, to share wealth. 8, to protect and maintain proper teachings. 9, to respect elders. Hope my mom's not listening to this. No, I'm kidding. I respect her. And 10, to love and cherish all living things. So I'll do something interesting with these. I'll write something or give another Dharma talk about it or something like that, because I think it's a very interesting way of looking at things. You know, we talk a lot about compassion and loving kindness and those kinds of things. And so how do you turn those things into actions that you can actually look at and go, okay, well, look, this is having an effect on the world that I'm in, and not just my mind. But again, like the bamboo acrobats, you know, if I look after my mind, I look after the world. If I look after the world, I look after my mind. So those things really do work together. So if you decided you were going to do some acts of kindness, that would help purify, to use that word, your mind. Because when you do good, that helps to wash away the residues of not so good things that you've done in the past. So it's not real obvious what some of these things mean. I know there's about 4 of them that sound like they say the same thing, but so I'll, when he explains them, it's a little different. So I'll rewrite them. And yeah, good. You should have lots of opportunities to be kind at Walmart. Taking back somebody's shopping cart or something. Just be safe. And use hand sanitizer and stuff. You're going to handle things that other people have been in contact with. So because we want you to be kind, but also to not put yourself at risk. So anyway, that's what I had to say for tonight. Any questions or comments before we close? Okay. Buddha nature pervades the whole universe, existing right here now, and offering flowers, candles, and incense, hearing the Dharma and training the mind. Great merit is attained. We dedicate this merit to the great Master Shakyamuni Buddha, the all-pervading and everlasting 3 treasures, the 16 guardians and all protectors of the Dharma and their relations throughout space and time, to all ancestors of the Sangha and all beings in the Dharma world. May penetrating light dispel the darkness of ignorance, so that all karma be resolved in the mind flower bloom in eternal spring. May the Dharma body maintain strength and health, and years of life be lengthened for all teachers of this Sangha. May their vows be fully realized. May they live in perfect peace with Buddha Dharma. We pray for those suffering from violence and those who grieve for them, for those living in oppression, for those who are in prison who should be free, for all refugees from violence, hunger, and catastrophe, man-made or natural. We pray for the health and well-being of those suffering from diseases of body, mind, or spirit, those working toward the healing of those afflictions, those suffering from COVID-19, those protecting and treating them, and those grieving for those lost to this pandemic. May they be serene through all their troubles, and may we realize the enlightened way together. Sabe sata sadahantu avera sukha jivino katang punya phalang mayham sabe bhagi bhavantu te. May all beings always live happily, free from animosity. May all share in the blessings that spring from the good we have done. Thank you all for being here. I hope you have a great night. I'll see some of you tomorrow at the Zoom meeting. And as always, have a beautiful night. Take care.